You've been watching the AI layoffs in tech and thinking, it's not me. Look up, 2024. Record number of CEO exits in over 2 decades of tracking. Guess what happened in 2025? Another record. For publicly traded companies specifically, 446 CEOs lost their jobs. A new all-time high. And January 2026, it's the third highest monthly total ever recorded. The trend is not slowing down. And now, before you think, okay, but I'm not a CEO. How does this apply to me? Let me stop you right here. We are talking about CEOs, the most powerful, the most protected, the most supposedly irreplaceable people in any organization. In the SAP 500 alone, 58 of them left in 2024. That's a 21% jump from the year before, and 101 in 2025. Doubled in just 2 years. And the average CEO tenure, it was 8.3 years in 2021. And by 2025, it had dropped to 6.8. Can you believe that? In just 4 years, it dropped 1.5 years. And it's still going down. So these are CEOs. And if the job isn't safe for them, what exactly makes you think it's safe for you? Now, there's a popular answer to the problem. Everyone keeps saying, go fractional. The fractional executive market hit 9.4 billion in 2025. Demand for fractional CFOs, CMOs, and COOs, that's for financial, for marketing and operations, fractional CXOs, grew 68% in a single year. Sounds amazing, but here's what nobody tells you. The only real public data on fractional executive income comes from a 2024 survey. People are answering by themselves. It's not a research, it's just a survey, okay? 250 people. And this is important. These are people who were already earning something. And the ones who tried and quietly went back to corporate or still open for new opportunity, they are not a part of that survey. They are on LinkedIn, looking on their job and pretending the whole thing never happened. So even among the survivors, 30% make less than 50 grand a year. That's not a second career, that's a very expensive hobby. And this video is about what actually separates the people who make this work from the people who don't. But before I scare you into never leaving your office, let me tell you something important. There is a real opportunity here, a structural one, and the timing right now is actually very good. Mid-sized companies, businesses doing between $3 and $50 million a year, maybe up to $100 million a year, desperately need C-suite level thinking. They need someone who has seen a broken sales process before, someone who knows what a cash flow crisis looks like before it becomes a crisis, someone who has done this, okay? And what they can't afford is a full-time CFO at 350 grand a year or CMO at 280 grand a year. The fractional models lets them get the same person, exact same person, not just the same thinking, but only for, say, half the price. And this isn't a compromise for them. This is a smart business decision. And right now, 25% of American companies, just imagine, every fourth American company is already doing it, okay? The demand is real and it's growing fast. The problem is, so is the supply. And most of the new supply is people who simply added the word fractional to their LinkedIn profile, into their LinkedIn headline, and what they do, they start waiting. This doesn't look like a strategy. This is a kind of queue that actually nobody's serving. I spent 14 years in C-suite roles, CEO, chief commercial officer, managing director, I built teams of over 700 people and I grew revenue by 40% in a single year. And that was not any kind of startup. It was already a market leader with over a 20% market share. At the same time, I've been improving margins. And I worked with different companies, the huge ones, like HP, Siemens, and Pfizer, Samsung, actually just tens of them, only the big names, not even mentioning the small ones. And I made a huge mistake. I didn't start building this while I was still in corporate. The decision to leave was not entirely mine. Let's just say, when you outperform, sometimes the people above you get nervous. And when people get nervous, things happen. I walked out with 2 months of pay and a very clear understanding that the corporate world doesn't owe you anything. And then I spent years figuring it out the hard way. I did freelance work. I did consulting that wasn't particularly good. A lot of project I'm not going to put in a case study, and eventually made reasonable money running training programs for large corporation staff. And then I joined a consulting firm, the largest one in my market, just to have something stable while I rebuild everything I created before. And only after all of that did I find the fractional model. Sold my first retainers. And only then did everything else start to make sense. I'm telling you this because the point of this channel is not to sell you a fantasy. I took the extremely expensive route. I know exactly where it hurts, and you don't have to repeat it. And this channel, Fractional CXO Blueprint, exists for only one reason: to show senior executives the difference between going fractional and actually building a fractional business. And in my one-on-one work, I help CXO leaders package their expertise into a product that companies want to buy and get their first clients without waiting for a crisis to force the decision. Let's get into it. First, let's clear something up, because the word fractional gets misused constantly. Fractional is not freelance. A freelancer takes a task and delivers it. No strategic ownership, no responsibility for what happens after. You hire them, they do one thing, they leave, everybody's happy. It's just not this. Fractional is not consulting, because a consultant gives you recommendations, beautiful recommendations in a very beautiful deck, which then lives in a folder on someone's desktop for the rest of its natural life. Consultants have funded some truly excellent slide design software. And a fractional executive is different. You work inside the company. You sit in leadership meetings, obviously not all of them, and you are accountable for outcomes, not deliverables. You are a part of the team, just not 5 days a week, and not at one company only. And here's the real distinction. Companies are not paying for your time, not paying for your work. They're paying for your pattern recognition and concrete solutions. Those deliver results. If you don't deliver results, the company doesn't pay you any kind of retention and is not employing you for any further projects with project fees. So what about pattern recognition? You have seen this exact problem or a version of it in 5 other different companies, maybe 50 times. You know how it ends. You know which 3 things to fix first. And you can do it. And you do it in half the time it would take someone who is seeking it for the first time, and without the long and costly experiments that come with figuring it out from scratch. In one of my first engagements, within 60 days, I found and fixed 2 big places where the company was losing significant money on technological waste, quality, and internal logistics. That was number 1 in the manufacturing plant. And the second one was about product management. It was a huge inventories, those were not moving, and it was huge gaps in the product lines. Those have been filled by the competitors where clients left. And neither has been spotted internally, not because these people were bad at their jobs, no, because they had never seen it from the outside before. And I had. Many times. The company got at least few tens of grants per month, and that was forever, not just once, okay? That is exactly what the fee is for. Now let's talk about where the actual demand is. First, talking about fractional CFO, because it's the most mature and most in-demand role in the market. Financial strategy, cash flow, especially cash flow and the cash gap, fundraising, investor relations. Retainers typically run 8 to 16 grand per month per client. Some desperate people sell that at 3, maybe even 2 grand per month. Don't do it, please. Companies get much more from your work than you can even imagine. And interesting thing about this, that demand grew 68% year over year in just 1 year. If your background is in finance, this is the most developed market you can enter. The second we talk about is the fractional COO, operation officer, is where operational experience meets growing company chaos. Founders are often brilliant at building something. They are famously horrible at running it once it has more than 50 people. A fractional COO comes in, looks at the operational disaster behind the scenes, and builds the systems that let the company function without the founder making every single decision at 11 p.m. on Sunday. Third is fractional CMO, and it's also one of the fastest growing roles. Companies that brought in fractional sales and marketing leadership reported a 63% increase in their pipeline within 6 months. If you have led market at scale, brand, demand generation, go-to-market strategy, there is a long line of mid-market companies who need exactly what you know. Most fractional executives charge between 5 and 10,000 per month per client. With 2 clients, you are at 120 to 240 grand a year. 3 clients, it's up to 360. And I want you to sit with that number for a moment, and then I want you to look at your current compensation package and think about the ratio of what you earn to what you produce. Now, let's talk about what actually happens to people who go fractional. Because if you think 120,000 fractional professionals are all doing well, oh, by the way, this number also grown twice for the last year. It was 60,000, now it became 120,000. I have some news for you. The only public income data we have comes from the FRAC, whatever that means, Conference 2024 report. 250 people across 29 states. And I want to be very clear about who these 250 people are. These are people who attended a conference for fractional professionals. They are already in the game. They are already earning something. The people who tried this, failed quietly, and went back to a corporate job, they were not at that conference. They were at home updating their resume and telling their spouse it was a learning experience. So this is already a pretty optimistic data set. And even here, 30% make less than $50,000 a year. Another 17% make between 50 and 100,000. That's almost half of the people who are already doing this, already trying, making less than a good mid-level manager at a Fortune 500 company. Just over half, 52.8, break 6 figures. That's real, that's achievable. But then there's the top of the market, and this part doesn't appear in any survey because the people running 8, 10, 12 client portfolios with retainers between 8 and 15 grand per client per month. By the way, the more clients, the higher retainer is. Guess why? You can write it down in the comments here. They are not filling out conference surveys, they are working. And this group is very small, but they capture a disproportional share of everything this market produces. Just make a small exercise. Consider having 12 clients, 15,000 retainer each, and multiply 12 by 15 and by another 12 months. How much you got? And here is the honest truth. The gap between I went fractional and I built a fractional portfolio business is enormous. And almost nobody talks about it openly. So, why start now while you are still employed? Why not wait until you actually need to? 3 reasons. First, your corporate status is worth the most right now, and it depreciates the moment you leave. So when you are a sitting SVP or C-suite executive at a major company, your credibility is at its peak. Your network is warm, your results are current, and you can say, I am leading this and that, instead of, I once led that. The word current and the word former are not the same word. In business, they are not even close. Second, your first client might take longer than you think. Doing this under financial pressure is a completely different and much worse experience. Believe me, I had that. 73% of fractional executives find clients through referrals and networking, not through job boards, not through cold outreach, through relationship. And you cannot rush a referral. You can only create the conditions for one by being visible, credible, and specific about what you offer. That takes time. If you start that process now, while you have a salary, it's a strategic project. If you start it after a layoff, it's a survival exercise. And survival exercises tend to end with you accepting the first client who called you at whatever price they offer. And third, your 20 years of experience is a life asset right now. In 2 years, it starts to age. When I worked at company A is a different value proposition than I work with companies at the level of company B. One is history and the other is a current offer. So, 2 specific next steps. First, in the description and at the top of this channel, there's a link to calculator. It will show you what you are actually worth on the fractional market right now, based on your role, your industry, and your experience. It takes just a couple of minutes. It might change how you think about your next career decision. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, that calculator is based on the hourly based, and you have to sell value to the client. That means that your hour must be few times more expensive than calculator will show you. But at least you will get some understanding, some kind of sense of what it can be. Second, follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I share real case breakdowns, positioning frameworks, and occasionally what actually happens inside specific client engagements. Link is in the description. Next video, how to price your fractional services. Most C-suite executives underprice themselves by half in the first 6 months. Not because they lack confidence, because they don't understand how fractional pricing actually works. We'll fix that. Follow me and ring the bell. You will be announced. You have spent 20 years building expertise that companies will pay serious money for. The only question is whether you package it or whether you wait until someone else decided what it's worth. So, see you in the next one.